Louise Hay, one of the most influential figures in the world of personal growth and inner transformation, used to say that what we don't bring into consciousness becomes our destiny. And few things remain as unconscious as the energy we absorb from those we allow into our most intimate spaces. What we don't see, don't understand, or choose to ignore continues to operate in the shadows, silently shaping our lives. But what truly happens on a spiritual level when we share our body with someone? How do these encounters affect our emotional balance, our energetic stability, and even our ability to manifest well-being in our material life? The answer is profound, and often one we resist seeing clearly. Most people believe intimacy is just a physical experience, but in reality, it's a merging of energetic fields, a weaving together of unconscious memories, and in some cases, the triggering of karmic patterns. Depending on how we experience this union, it can become a powerful path to healing, or a silent leak that drains our energy without us knowing why. Because when intimacy is approached superficially, the emptiness it leaves behind isn't just a fleeting sense of unmet desire. It can turn into an energetic void that disrupts our emotional state, our ability to connect with others, and even our flow of abundance. But when connection arises from a place of authenticity, full awareness, and mutual respect, intimacy becomes a source of expansion, balance, and inner power. And in this video, we're going to explore exactly that, the two sides of intimacy, the one that elevates your energy and the one that, without you noticing, slowly drains it. So stay with us until the end, because understanding this can radically change the way you experience relationships and protect your energetic well-being. Before we go deeper, if this topic resonates with you, give us a like and subscribe to keep diving into the path of self-awareness and healing. Now, let's enter this fascinating world of energy and intimacy. When two people come together in intimacy, they don't just touch, they absorb each other. Beyond desire, beyond chemistry, something invisible yet powerful takes place, a subtle exchange of energies, of stories, of hidden wounds that can leave a mark long after the moment has passed. Think about it. Some people, after being intimate, feel uplifted, at peace, with an unexplainable sense of wholeness. Others, without knowing why, feel drained, anxious, or empty. Have you ever experienced that? Have you felt like instead of gaining something in a relationship, you lost a part of yourself? That's not a coincidence. Our energy field is like a web that holds deep memories, many of which we don't consciously remember. And when we connect with someone on such an intimate level, that web intertwines with theirs. It's as if each person carries emotional baggage, and during the fusion, both end up exchanging parts of that load. We don't just take in the other person's pleasure, we might also absorb their sadness, their anxiety, their deepest fears. And the most unsettling part is that in most cases, this happens without us realizing it. Louise Hay always spoke about the power of energy to shape our reality. And sexual energy, in many spiritual traditions, is considered the most powerful creative force. It not only gives life on the physical plane, it also creates realities on a subtle level. What we plant in intimacy expands into our everyday life. It influences our confidence, our creativity, and even our ability to attract opportunities. But what happens when that energy is exchanged unconsciously, with someone carrying deep wounds, unresolved trauma, or heavy emotions? In these cases, intimacy stops being an act of expansion and becomes a silent leak of vitality. Suddenly, we find ourselves with less energy for our goals, less clarity to make decisions, and a sense of stagnation we can't quite explain. And this is where many people fall into an invisible cycle. They seek intimacy as a way to fill internal voids, to silence the fear of loneliness, or to numb emotional pain. But instead of finding relief, they end up carrying even more energetic weight. And so, they repeat the same patterns over and over. Relationships that start with intensity and end in indifference. Connections that promise deep bonding but only leave a feeling of loss, of having given too much and received very little in return. Inexplicable feelings of sadness, irrational attachment, or guilt after encounters that, in theory, weren't supposed to mean anything. Why does this happen? Why can something that's supposed to bring us pleasure end up draining us instead? The answer lies in intention. When intimacy is born from a real connection, one rooted in respect, presence, and awareness, the energy exchange is balanced. In those cases, energy flows naturally, nourishing instead of depleting, uplifting instead of draining. But when the motivation behind the union is emotional disconnection, a search for instant gratification without a solid foundation, the energetic exchange becomes a disguised theft. And this doesn't just affect your emotional life. There are people who, after a superficial relationship, notice their projects stall, their motivation plummet, and their thoughts become cloudy. They can't quite understand why, but they feel something inside them has shifted, like a part of their life force was left behind in that encounter. As if something invisible is holding them in a state of inertia. So ask yourself, how much energy have you left with people who don't even remember your name? How many parts of yourself are still trapped in moments you once thought meant nothing? Because intimacy is so much more than the physical body. It's an energetic pact, a door that opens to the deepest parts of who we are. And if we're not aware of how, with whom, and with what intention we engage in it, we could end up giving away our energy without even realizing it. Louise Hay taught us that everything in our life is shaped by what we think, what we feel, and most importantly, by the energy we choose to exchange. So next time you share your energy with someone, ask yourself, is this nourishing me or draining me? Because the answer to that question could change everything. Throughout life, many experiences seem harmless, fleeting, insignificant. Yet some leave invisible marks on our energetic field, shaping our essence in ways we rarely notice consciously. Ask yourself, how much of what you feel today truly belongs to you, and how much is simply a reflection of the energies you've absorbed from others? What comes next could forever change the way you perceive intimacy. Many people believe they can share their body with someone and move on as if nothing happened, convinced that pleasure is just a fleeting moment, lived and forgotten. But energy doesn't work that way. What we experience in intimacy doesn't vanish once the encounter ends. On the contrary, it stays with us, taking root on levels we rarely notice right away. These aren't just memories. They are vibrations, frequencies that can disrupt our peace, our mental clarity, and the way we relate to others. Louise Hay taught us that everything we deny within ourselves ends up leaving behind sensations that are hard to explain. A strange feeling of sudden attachment. An emotional crash with no apparent cause. A quiet inner unease that wasn't there before. None of this is random. Every time we share our energy with someone, a subtle yet profound exchange takes place. Sometimes this energetic flow is harmonious and strengthens us, but other times, without even realizing it, we end up absorbing heavy emotional baggage, fragments of someone else's fears, anxieties, and unresolved traumas. And when that happens, the impact can be far greater than we imagine. Have you ever wondered why, after certain encounters, you lose your focus? Why projects that once flowed easily suddenly begin to stall? Why decisions that once felt clear suddenly become confusing? Some people even experience a sudden and unexplainable shift in their mood, as if an invisible cloud has dimmed their energy, bringing with it a strange feeling of emotional exhaustion. The problem is that very few people stop to question the real cause. Most attribute these changes to stress, fatigue, or other external factors, without considering that it might actually be the energy they've allowed into their life. Because intimacy is not just a physical act. It's a channel. When two people come together at that level of closeness, they don't just share their bodies, they intertwine their emotions, thoughts, and unconscious burdens. And if one of them carries unhealed wounds, deep fears, or rooted insecurities, it's likely the other will end up carrying part of that energy, without even knowing it. This isn't magic, nor is it superstition. It's simply the way energy moves and interacts. Yet we live in a world that has reduced the value of intimacy to the immediate thrill, to the heat of the moment, without considering the consequences it might have. When a connection is superficial, when there's no true exchange of respect, presence, or intention, intimacy becomes an unbalanced energetic transaction. We try to fill a void, but all we're left with is a sense of depletion. So tell me, how many times have you felt inexplicably drained after a connection that was supposed to be pleasurable? How many times have you shared an intimate moment and walked away feeling like something inside you shifted, but couldn't quite explain what? That's not a coincidence. There's a reason for it. And understanding that reason can completely change how you experience intimacy. What's most surprising is that these exchanges don't only affect your emotional state. They can directly influence your material stability and your ability to manifest well-being in your life. Because if the energy we absorb during these encounters can alter our mental peace, what's to stop it from also affecting our finances, our motivation, or our clarity in decision-making? It's not uncommon for people, after a shallow or empty relationship, to go through periods of confusion, lack of focus, or unexpected setbacks. It's as if something inside them was drained, like a piece of their vital force slipped away without leaving a visible mark, but its absence is deeply felt. And the most unsettling part is that this energetic depletion doesn't always show up right away. Sometimes, its effects take days or even weeks to appear. Everything seems fine, until suddenly, the motivation fades, things stop flowing naturally, and your enthusiasm for life begins to quietly disappear. Louise Hay often spoke about how our unconscious beliefs shape our reality. But she also reminded us that we don't just create with our minds, we create with our energy. Every intimate encounter activates invisible bonds and energetic knots that can either empower us or weaken us, depending on the quality of the connection we've established. And this is where it all begins to make sense. If intimacy is truly an exchange of energy, then who are you sharing yours with? From what emotional place are you doing it? Are you being nourished? Or are you being drained? But if after being with someone you're overwhelmed by unease, emptiness, or a sadness with no clear reason, if your mind fills with confused thoughts or your body feels heavier than usual, then it's possible that something more happened during that exchange. Because energy doesn't lie. Louise Hay used to say that what remains in the shadows, what we avoid looking at, continues to guide our lives without us realizing it. Until we bring to light what operates in our unconscious, we'll keep repeating the same patterns again and again. And here's the big question: are you living intimacy with awareness, consciously choosing who you allow into your energetic space, or are you letting other people's energy shape yours without even realizing it? If you've ever felt that your energy changed for the worse after certain encounters, it's time to ask yourself this: are you giving away your power, or are you cultivating it? It's not just about pleasure or emotion. It's an energy exchange, and how you experience it determines whether you're being strengthened or drained. What remains in the shadows, what we refuse to face or simply ignore, continues to operate in our lives like a silent force. Louise Hay taught that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will continue to direct our lives, and we'll call it destiny. This is exactly what happens when we repeat certain patterns without questioning their origin. Many people wonder why, no matter who they share intimacy with, they always end up with the same feeling of emptiness. The answer doesn't lie only in the people we connect with, but in the energy we allow into our lives, and in the intention with which we enter each experience. The issue doesn't lie in intimacy itself, but in the lack of awareness with which it's often lived. When the drive behind these encounters is to avoid loneliness, stress, or unresolved emotional wounds, their long-term effect is rarely positive. What begins as a distraction or temporary relief can end up becoming a heavy burden that's hard to shake off. Each empty encounter leaves a trace, a small crack in our energy field that, if ignored, becomes a pattern of depletion. That's why many people, after years of intentionless relationships, feel they've lost the ability to genuinely connect. Their energy has been scattered in many directions. They've shared fragments of themselves without reclaiming them, and without realizing it, they've weakened their own essence. They've been fragmented in each superficial bond. And while the experiences may have seemed fleeting, something of them remained trapped in each one. Yet intimacy can also become a path of healing and restoration, when it is experienced with intention and awareness. When two people come together from a place of respect, authenticity, and true presence, the exchange stops being an energy leak and transforms into a source of expansion and empowerment. In those cases, intimacy is no longer just a physical act, it becomes a deep connection that nourishes both people instead of depleting them. But what happens when someone has given away too much energy without conscious awareness? Is it possible to recover what's been lost and rebuild the self after having been fragmented through multiple relationships? The answer may surprise you. When someone has gone through numerous energetic exchanges without conscious intention, they begin to experience a kind of weariness that's hard to explain. It's not just a feeling of fatigue, or a state of apathy or lack of motivation. It's something deeper, the sense of having given away parts of themselves that they no longer know how to reclaim. As if their essence were scattered across memories, faces, and experiences that left behind subtle, almost invisible imprints. Healing something you can't see but feel in every cell of your being can seem like a challenge. But the answer often lies in silence and introspection. Stepping out of the automatic cycle of seeking and allowing yourself to look inward doesn't mean isolating yourself or rejecting intimacy. It means consciously integrating everything you've given away without intention. Recovering your energy doesn't mean closing your heart or distancing yourself from relationships. It means learning to experience them from a different place, with real presence, clear intention, and a connection that adds to your life instead of draining it. When intimacy stops being a reflection of inner emptiness and becomes an expression of wholeness, everything changes. Energy no longer fragments, it begins to strengthen. Desire is no longer a desperate search, but rather an expression of genuine connection. And in that state of clarity, intimacy no longer depletes, it becomes an experience that expands and balances. Some people discover this after years of repeating the same patterns, wondering again and again why, no matter how many experiences they have, they still feel the same emptiness. Others realize it earlier and begin to make different choices. The difference between these two paths isn't luck or fate, it's the awareness with which each experience is lived. Those who manage to transform their relationship with intimacy begin to notice profound changes that go beyond the emotional. Clarity returns, energy stabilizes, opportunities begin to flow more naturally, and life as a whole aligns with a new vibration, one no longer marked by depletion, but by integration. This process of transformation doesn't have to be long or complicated. It all begins with a simple question: from what place am I sharing my energy? From the moment you begin to observe the intention behind each encounter, energy stops flowing randomly and begins to move with purpose. It's no longer just about what you want in the moment, but about what you're choosing to build with each experience. And that difference is what defines whether intimacy becomes a path of loss or a powerful tool for expansion and fulfillment. In a moment of deep connection, something within you awakens. You realize that intimacy is not just a physical act, it's a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. Every person you connect with becomes a mirror, revealing parts of you that you may have never seen clearly before. Often, what we perceive in others is actually a manifestation of something we carry within. In intimacy, this projection intensifies, and we face not only what we desire, but also what we need to see. That which resonates with our own energy and which, consciously or unconsciously, we have attracted. It's at this point that many people discover the key to understanding why they keep repeating the same relationship patterns. If you've noticed that you keep getting involved in connections that leave you feeling empty, if you feel like you give more than you receive, or that every encounter ends in more confusion than pleasure, it may be that something within you is still searching for answers in the wrong place. When you stop seeing intimacy as a mere physical need and begin to recognize it as an energetic exchange, everything changes. You no longer get carried away by fleeting attraction, but start sensing what lies beneath. You feel the other person's vibration, their emotional state, the weight they carry. Most importantly, from that new awareness, you learn to choose from a different place. Not from lack or impulse, but from consciousness. This doesn't mean repressing desire or living intimacy with fear. On the contrary, when there's awareness, pleasure is experienced on a much deeper and more satisfying level, because it's no longer about filling internal voids, but about sharing from a place of fullness. You no longer seek someone to feel good temporarily, you seek to create a connection that truly adds to your life and nourishes your soul. And when that happens, the impact goes far beyond the moment itself. It's reflected in your daily energy, in your mental clarity, in the way you relate to others, and even in how your life begins to flow. Once we become aware of the depth and power of the energetic exchanges that occur through intimacy, we stop entering relationships out of unconscious need, habit, or emotional escape. We begin to choose differently, not just who we share our body with, but who we allow access to our inner world. This is not about closing off, it is the deepest form of self-respect. Every conscious decision becomes an act of healing, a return to ourselves, and a gentle gathering of those parts of us that were once scattered in encounters lacking presence. So, don't forget, your energy is sacred space. It's not meant for everyone. When you learn to protect your boundaries, when you begin to connect from wholeness instead of emptiness, you'll discover that true intimacy doesn't drain you, it restores you. It doesn't take your strength, it multiplies it. And then, in the quiet of your being, you'll feel that you're no longer seeking someone to complete you, because you are already whole. You're simply sharing who you are, consciously, freely, and with love.